yourself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true.
Hi, welcome to NUFC Matters. It is Geordies here, Geordies there, and tonight joined by George, Mitch, Steve, and Alwaleed. Steve Hasty should be joining us as well. This is a pre-recorded show, and we've decided to do a special, which we often do, and this is a bit of a tribute to Alan Shearer, where we ask the guys their favourite Alan Shearer game, and then we'll go back round again and find out what their favourite goal was. And as always, we start with George. Good evening, George.
Hello, lads, Steve, everybody. This is a good one. It's a one which, when I saw it, I was hesitant because there's so many games and goals with Alan Shearer that we've all been involved in. But the other side of it is, of course, I'm one of the fortunate people, if you like, whose childhood and boyhood was brought up with Jackie Milburn, and then my adulthood, I've seen Alan Shearer's career develop as well. And so it'd be no surprise when I've said that to which game I want to pick. And that's the game in February 2006 when he broke Jackie Milburn's record. Fascinating game because it was full of tension. Lots of things happening around the club at the time, of course. We'd just sacked Souness. Glenn Roeder was stand-in manager. Because Roeder didn't put him in the squad like Souness hadn't, Albert Luque kicked off and disappeared for a couple of weeks, got a big huff. And then, of course, we had some characters in the team who didn't exactly didn't actually gel with the crowd, like Jean-Alain Boumsong, who every time he touched the ball got booed by our fans more than the away fans. So it was that kind of game, but you could feel, at least I think, you could feel the tension in the crowd every time Shearer got near the ball and near the goal. And the only trouble was that in goal for Portsmouth was the top player. It was the man of the match, Keeley. Played out of his skin, and the number of times he saved what would have been normally certain goals. I think if he hadn't been in goal, it could have been 6 or 7. But the fact that it was only 2, it was entirely down to him. But he thwarted Shearer over and over and over again, particularly in the first half. But then, just before half time, Nzoggia went through and played a 1-2 with Schuler, and back to Shearer, and everybody thought, well, here it comes. And of course, Shearer walloped it like he usually does. And guess what? The goalkeeper saved it. He shouldn't have got anywhere near it, but it bounced out, and Charles Nzoggia put the rebound into the back of the net for the first goal. So that was the first half. But the tension in the ground was palpable. You could feel it, particularly every time Shearer got near the ball. You could feel the rumblings in the crowd like you usually do. As it happens, the team for the day was given Ramage, Babayaro, Parker, Bramble, Boumsong, Solano, Amiobi, Shearer, Emery, and Nzoggia. And substitutes were Elliott, Clark, and those well-known prize fighters, Bowyer and Dyer, and Harper. It wasn't a bad team. To add to the mix, though, was that there were some people in the Pompey team that weren't strangers to us. Andy O'Brien, and Andy Griven, Alessandro, Wayne Routledge, they were all in the Pompey team that day. So it had a bit of edge to it in that sense as well. The other thing, when thinking about this game and sort of doing some checking up, I came across an article by Mark Carruthers, who usually writes the non-league stuff for the Chronicle and the local papers. and he did an article about 4 or 5 years ago on that team saying, where are they now? And he went down the list from Given all the way through to Nzogua, and even the substitutes, and said where they are now. If you get the chance to read it, it's a good article by Mark Carruthers. But the one I wanted to highlight was in the team was Emery, of course, the Turkish lad, who, again, from a personal point of view, I got to know through my good friend at the university, Professor Mehmet Atla, who was Turkish. And of course, he knew Emery and quite often brought Emery into the university. So it was nothing to have Emery sit in the front row of the lecture room when Mehmet was lecturing to the students, and the students thought that was great. So I got to know him quite well. Plus, they introduced us to some of the Turkish restaurateurs around the place that would always get a good meal in the Turkish restaurants. There's a one at Long Benton, which is Red Lisette, which is brilliant, and we're still well known there. Anyway, Emery, what I was going to say about Emery was, you might recall at about this time, he had 2 long suspensions for racial abuse. He abused racial players on the opposition. I think he had a go at a couple of Everton players and someone else, and he had a couple of long suspensions. Well, Mark Carruthers reckons that when he went back to Turkey, that didn't change. He'd only been back in Turkey a couple of months when he got a first long suspension for exactly the same thing, playing for his own team in Turkey and abusing players on the other side. Having not satisfied with that, he did it again about 3 or 4 months later and got a suspension. Where his brains were, I don't know, because within a month, he'd done it again. And guess what? He got 2.5 years jail for that. They didn't waste any time in Turkey. They gave him 2.5 days in jail. So there are side issues around this match and around this team. But it go to the second half, and of course, we're all waiting for the moment that Alan breaks the record. Don't forget, it's a record that stood for 5 decades from Jackie Milburn. And Shearer did everything he could to score. But inevitably, it happened, and it was a good goal. I'm going to talk about the goal later, aren't I? Is that right? Yeah, well, I'll leave the goal later then. And in 64 minutes, the inevitable happened, and well, St. James's Park just erupted. You can run the pictures now, Steve, if you like. That's what had happened. That's Emery's characteristic hand in the air salute. And then there's another one of Shearer just applauding the fans at the end and at the Gallagher end and saying thank you to everybody. So that, it was great. Now, here's the other guy, the guy that whose record he took. That's John Edward Thompson Milburn, Jet Milburn, Jackie Milburn, as we knew him. And there he is. Now, that's a characteristic style of Jackie. He used to use that long stretch and leg to pull the ball back from defenders that were chasing away from him and get the ball back. I suspect that in this day and age, he might well got held up for tackling from behind, but I'm not so sure. But he was very good. And the other thing I want to point out, if you look at that picture, you see all the kids sitting around the wall on at St. James's Park on the running track, and that's obviously a full house. And then the third, that's Jackie scored in the cup final against Manchester City. The header that opened the cup final. Manchester City were lulled into the fact that Vic Keeble was the header, and they marked Vic Keeble heavily. And the theory was, well, Milburn's not a very good header, so they left Milburn. Well, in practice, the Magpies had been working on that, and they just chipped the ball in, and Milburn banged his header into the back of the net very early in the cup final. This is a bit of me being cheeky. That's me at 14 with me county boys blazer on, and wearing and carrying the county cup, the Blake Cup. That year that my school team, we won about 7 trophies in that year, didn't lose a match. But shortly after that picture was taken, I had the great pleasure of playing my first game for the A team, Newcastle A team, which was being managed by Jackie Milburn then, because his played career was over. And what a great thrill and pleasure that was. You know, I didn't realise he was there. When I turned up at the dressing room at Wallsend at North Road and went in and seen who was there, it took us about 20 minutes to get me breath. And when I see them standing there, when, you know, you've got a boyhood hero standing in front of you and you know you're going to be involved with it that day, it's something special. So the other thing is that the interesting thing is that the Milburn family have said some wonderful things about Shearer. Yes, they anticipated eventually Jackie's record would go, but they were thrilled that it went to another Geordie, another one of our own, to take the record over. And Jackie's son said that comparing Alan and Jackie was like comparing Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson. And I think that's a pretty good description, because even with my years watching the club and my interest in Milburn and in Shearer, I couldn't define it better than that, because they both have their pluses and so on, different styles, but were fantastic. Jackie had 5 years top goal scorer and 3 years where he was second top goal scorer. 3 cup final wins at Wembley. It's just a pity that, from my point of view, and I suspect from yours, that Alan Shearer didn't get similar cup finals, because we should have done. I'm convinced that some of the semi-finals and finals we got to, which I used to transport all the lads to all over the country, we threw some of them away. I don't know whether it was nerves or what, but 1 or 2 of our players just died on the day, as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, that's my game. 51,627 playing. Shearer's 550th game for the club, and the 4th of February 2006, and it was his 201st goal for Newcastle. So that's my Shearer game.
Fantastic, mate. Great stuff, George. I love the little throwbacks to you as well, and that great photograph of you holding a trophy, mate. Brilliant. Mitch, you've always got some footsteps to follow in with your dad, unfortunately, but over to you about Shearer's game.
In every way, mate, sometimes, I tell you. No, I mean, excuse me if I'm a little underprepared, because I didn't know if I'd make this tonight. So my diary changed at the last minute, which was great.
Thanks for joining me, mate. Always appreciate it.
You know, I like to be a little contrarian sometimes, and there's so many games we could go through. We're blessed really to be able to talk about somebody like Alan Shearer as our club, you know, hero and more. And so we're really looking in what to pick. The game I've gone for, though, is actually an England game, an international game. And it's the moment the nation suddenly believed. Euro 96. It's the group stage. We only need a point to qualify from the group. We've already done really well. And we're up against Holland. And this is a decent Dutch side. In fact, I dare say more than a decent Dutch side. We both just need a point to qualify. We could have done a Germany, Austria, and Spain 82, and just played out a 0-0 draw, and everybody goes through and everybody's happy. But there was something about that night at Wembley that was different, and there was something about that night at Wembley that you saw a nation come together behind the team, and a team respond in a very, very, very big way. And this was peak Holland. This is Holland with Bergkamp up front, with Kluivert up front, the proper Kluivert, not the one sponsored by Greggs that we ended up getting. You know, this was a proper team, and on its day, it could have beat any team in the world. And that day, England were irresistible, and the front line of Shearer and Sheringham, very much so, totally irresistible. And of all the partners that he had, I think Sheringham was probably one of the least likely ones. Yet when they played together for the country, they were dynamite. I don't know what the goal scoring record as a partnership is, but I reckon it must have been phenomenal as a partnership. And that night we got 2 each. That night the game started really well midway through the first half. I think it was Ince was brought down. Was it by Danny Blind for the penalty? And Shearer took that away in typical Shearer fashion. Second goal, if I remember right, was a corner. And I think it was Sheringham headed it in from the corner, and I don't think anybody on the pitch believed he could. I think it went in at quite a weird angle. And everybody was looking at each other along the lines of, oh, did that go in? And then the third goal, and this is the one that I remember most from the game, was a lovely passage of play between Darren Anderton and Gaza. And I think this was the game that Gaza came of age for the tournament in as well. Then Gaza steams into the box, lays it off to Sheringham, who lays it off to Shearer, and he puts his laces through it, and the back of the net nearly comes off. And that was special goal. Sheringham's finished the scoring later on in the second half, and I think we conceded a consolation later on, but it didn't affect the result, didn't affect the mood. And I think that was the point where everybody suddenly believed, hang on a minute, we could win this. We don't need a good tailwind, we don't need a bit of luck. We can win this. We're good enough. We're just taking apart. I'm sure Holland were ranked 3 in the world going into that tournament, or something like that. And we demolished them. Didn't just beat them, we absolutely hammered them. And all the cities, all the host cities like Newcastle came alive with people from all over Europe in there, and we had the change in the extended drinking hours so you could stay out later than normal, and it was a good vibe. There wasn't a bad vibe at all. I remember watching the game in Jesmond somewhere, Carriage maybe, somewhere that way, and then walking back into town after the game, and the whole city was bouncing. And you could hear Shearer's name being sung, but you couldn't just hear it being sung in Newcastle. It was being sung around the country. It was being sung in Wembley. And that was our number 9. And he became the country's number 9. And at that moment, that result, that was when the country all suddenly believed, yeah, we can actually win this. And obviously, everybody knows what happened with the infamous penalty shootout against Germany. If only Gaza's studs had been quarter of an inch longer, maybe they would have scored that second and beaten Germany. But tournament was amazing, and Shearer was one of the highlights and heroes of the tournament. And that game in particular, that's probably if you make me think of an international football match, that's the first one that comes into my mind. And so that's why I decided to talk about it tonight.
Brilliant stuff, mate. Great memories. And obviously, Gaza, as you say, another fantastic tournament. Sure that'll be somebody who we can feature on one of these programmes in the future. But Steve Wilkinson, over to you, mate. Your Shearer game, please.
Yeah, as the lads have said already, there was a vast number to choose from, and I chose a game where Shearer had probably an impact on the game and the outcome. And I described this game when we're in the chat ahead of the show, when we're choosing our games, as a Roy of the Rovers stuff. And I thought I should really, that's an expression that's often used on commentators and in the media. And I thought since our origins go back to the retro show and then the sort of stuff George talks about in the 50s, I should really talk about who Roy of the Rovers is, because I suppose anybody that's been around as a fan in the Keegan era and onwards probably has never heard of Roy of the Rovers or read about him. And Roy of the Rovers was a fictional footballer, played for a fictional team called Melchester Rovers, and it goes back to the 50s when he played, and he carried on playing into the 70s. And he actually played with Supermac in this England International that's on the front page of this comic that was around then. And now this obviously isn't a proper McDonald goal because it doesn't go in. It looks like the goalie saved it, so it can't have really been a proper McDonald shot, because I'm sure he would have stuck it in the bottom corner. But that's Roy Wraith playing alongside him. And this comic originally comic strip originally in the magazine called The Tiger and went on over the years, and it continued right up until the late 90s. But it was always there was a lot of the Manchester Rovers were either going to win the league or they were going to get relegated or they were playing Europeans, and there was always something dramatic storyline that went with it, and often dramatic ends to the game. And that's why I called this game that I'm going to talk about, which is the Leicester game in 1997, is that, because it's a game that Shearer had an impact, particularly at the end of the game. If you paint a picture of the timing, it was just the start of the year. This game was in February, and it was just after the 7-1 demolition of Tottenham, in which Shearer and Les Ferdinand had both scored a couple, and also Keegan shocking announcement that he was quitting, and so we were all in shock at playing fantastic football at the time, and then we got the shock announcement that Keegan was leaving, and Kenny Dalglish came in, and I suppose to start with we thought, well, okay, that's a decent replacement. Although I think we all wish in hindsight that Bobby had come at that time as they were trying to get him. And continuing initially, we had a good run. I think we'd beaten Everton 4-1, and then we came with this game against Leicester. Full house, which was only 36,000 at the time, because we're still waiting for the ground redevelopment to go on. And the game itself, we started quite brightly and took the lead through a shot from Robbie Elliott in the what time was that goal? It was early on, first few minutes. That's right. Yeah, about the third minute, we took the lead through Robbie Elliott, and the game wasn't a particularly fantastic game, and got to half time still 1-0, and but we expected to probably push on in the second half, and then we're hit by three goals from Leicester in a short space of time in the first 15 minutes or so of the second half, and we're just in shock that these three goals from Matt Elliott and Steve Claridge and Emil Heskey, players at that era, name people I remember from that time, and so we're 3-1 down, and the master plan of being successful as had been, it was just about to go out the window. And then this is where this Roy of the Rovers things comes on, because at that sort of stage when you're 3-1 down, you think, well, how can we get some magic to get back in the game? And it's typical that somebody like Alan Shearer would do that kind of thing, and that's exactly what happened by him hitting a hat-trick in the last 15 minutes. And it was one of those sort of they weren't absolutely classic goals. The first one probably was the best of the three, which was a typical Alan Shearer free kick, reminiscent of his first goal. If you go back to the times when he scored the first goal, it was a Wimbledon we played when he first rammed the free kick in when he first arrived. Similar sort of thing, free kick just outside the box, and he just belted it through everybody, and it went straight through the wall and into the roof of the net. So that was back to 3-2. As you can always imagine, that sort of would push the momentum on the crowd. And then so that was in the 76 minutes, and then only about 7 minutes later, he scored another one. This was a most typical type Alan Shearer goal. Ball breaks to him in the edge of the penalty area, just inside the penalty area, in a low cross shot, which evaded the goalie and went in the bottom corner. So there we are, threes each. And as we would expect, the momentum swung from Leicester back to us, and we're waiting for the dramatic finish, and it's still going right into the last minute when a ball that was put across the goal by Rob Lee from the right hand side, similar to the position that ASM got himself in against Wolves last week, but instead of belting it across at Exocet missile speed like ASM did in the hope that Chris Wood would get on the end of it, it was a perfect pass from Rob Lee across the goal mouth, and Alan Shearer just stroked it in from 3 yards. And then we'll have a 4-3 win from that being 3-1 down at one stage with only 15 minutes left, and that's where it becomes the Roy of the Rovers, because here you have a situation where you're down and you're waiting for the drama, and Roy of the Rovers would have done the same sort of thing. He would like you to score a hat-trick in the last 10-15 minutes as well, and it's something that always excites me. I love a game with 4-3s and stuff like that, and that kind of thing. And The nearest we had to that, anybody been more recently, was in the Norwich game. You might remember in 2016 when we were losing 3-1 going into injury time, and a lot of the crowd left in depression, and Dwight Gale scored a couple more to complete his hat-trick, and we ended up winning 4-3 for the 96th minute. But goals missed by quite a lot of people who cleared the ground when it was 3-1 with extra full-time looming. So that was my game. As I said, many to choose from, and that game I chose because of the impact Shearer had right at the end and making it a memorable night.
Fantastic. Great recollections. Alwaleed, over to you, my friend.
Yes, as I said before, we didn't have that great coverage. And at 1998, I picked the game England against Saudi Arabia, and it was preparation for World Cup in France. I was 12 or 11 back then, and we were very excited for this game because Saudi Arabia did well in 1994 in the World Cup, so we will have high expectation before France World Cup. So we were play heavy games for preparation, and one of them was against England, and we're also sport fans very excited about that game. And I watched it live, and I was reading, that's Ibrahim Al-Swayed, who played for Al-Ahli in Saudi Arabia, and that game was amazing. And when the media talking about, even English media, I remember they've been called my favorite star Saudi, his Samuel Jabir, number 9 in Saudi Arabia. They were called him Alan Shearer of Saudi Arabia. So that time, actually, name Alan Shearer come to my head. So I was looking for, okay, who's the player from England who are fans saying this is Alan Shearer, or described as Alan Shearer of the Arabia. And later on, I searched for the player, and I did know that he's play for Newcastle, and that time I started to support and care about Newcastle. That game was amazing, especially for my star Samuel Jabir, which if you see some small part of the game or the highlights, you will see how great he was. And I'm sure Tony Adams remember a lot of things regarding Samuel Jabir. And this is now I should talk about Alan Shearer, not about my player in Saudi Arabia. Alan Shearer. And as Mitch saying, the partnership with Teddy Sheringham, this is one of the things. It's England always have great squad. So I'm really wish them to win the World Cup in November. It was a great game, and it was 0-0, but this is one of the best 0-0 you can ever see.
Yeah, fantastic. Great result for Saudi Arabia against England as well.
And I believe it was in Wembley, if I'm not mistaken.
It was at Wembley, the old Wembley, of course. The old Wembley, of course. Steve Hasty, good evening. Welcome to you and your Shearer game, please.
Oh, my Shearer game was also a Robson game. It was the Newcastle United 8, Sheffield Wednesday 0. And for all the younger people watching, yes, 8.
8.
At home, 0 against. Fantastic. Everything about this game, the drama that we'd had in the weeks preceding, the Sunderland game, the way Shearer was treated, the way that Ferguson was treated, Hullett losing his job, and then Sir Bobby coming in, and this was actually Sir Bobby's first home game, and I think there was just an air of sort of relief in a way, as well as excitement on the terraces on that particular day, because we'd gone through it, and some of us, yes, we'd had the glory of going to the cup final with Hullett, but it soon soured. We all remember that, and certainly I think that of 5 out of 6 of us around this panel remember that sour taste that we had in our mouth during that period of August. And Alan, let's face it, I think a lot of people won't realise, but Alan's career was really at a crossroads at this point. Certainly his career at Newcastle United. I think he in his own mind and in the mind of some of the press, if Hullett have remained, then Alan wouldn't have seen out probably until September, or maybe a little bit longer, but certainly not the full season. I think he would have been gone. I can't remember exactly what the transfer rules were at that particular time. Whether there was a cut-off point or whether you could just sell people willy-nilly. I can't remember, but I do remember the very fact that we just went into that thinking, if Shearer doesn't pull his socks up and Shearer doesn't get the opportunity, or if Shearer doesn't do anything, or if Shearer's really, really, has been put off of this football club by Rutel to the extent he wants to leave, then, things are not looking good. But we went into the game and lo and behold, Alan scores 5. He doesn't score 3, he doesn't score 2, he doesn't score 1, he scores 5. And this was the moment, I think, where Alan in his own mind realised that, and probably looked in the following few months, that Sir Bobby Robson, with a quiet word before the game and then everything that went on after, really saved Alan's career. And I think that's why it's an important game. It's not important for the 5 goals. It's the importance of Alan's career for the following 5 or 6 seasons, when he then was able to go on and he was able to break the record of 206 goals. So for me, that was special. I think the first goal of the game was actually scored by Aaron Hughes, if I remember rightly. A player who I felt as though really got the bad rub of the green, if you like. I think that he was a player that could have stayed at Newcastle for his entire career, and I think he had a great career after he left Newcastle. But I never understood why Graham Souness, I think it was, pushed him out the door. But Alan then scored, and again, I think the first one was a little flick in from a cross by Dyer. He then scored the second one, which was a penalty. And after that, we weren't even bothered. We just sat and watched the goals roll in, and we suddenly thought, and I think everybody subsequently has said it probably 1,000 times, if only we got Sir Bobby after Kevin Keegan left, where would the football club have been? And that was the whole thing. Everything went right for us on the pitch. It started to go right for Alan off the pitch as well as on the pitch. It rejuvenated his career, allowed him to get to that 206 goals, break the record. And for me, that was so special. So that for me was the ultimate Alan Shearer game.
Yeah, fantastic. Some great memories, to be honest, shared by the lads there, and that's why we decided to do this. I'm going to share mine. My favourite Shearer game was in the pomp of the entertainers, and Newcastle took on Tottenham Hotspur at St James's Park in a Premier League fixture, and probably one of the most one-sided games that I've seen against Tottenham in my time supporting Newcastle United. The lineups, just to give you a flavour of who the teams were: Shaka Hislop was in goal for Newcastle. The defence was made up of Darren Peacock, Philip Albert and John Beresford. Midfield, Rob Lee, David Batty, Keith Gillespie, Steve Watson. And forwards, well, we had 3 that day: Les Ferdinand, Peter Beardsley and Alan Shearer. Only one substitute used in the game. It was Lee Clark, another great player to bring on. As for the visitors, well, Ian Walker was a bit of a stalwart in those days for Spurs. He was in goal. The defence was made up of Stephen Carr, Sol Campbell, both players who ended up at Newcastle as players. Clyde Wilson and Colin Calderwood, of course, who was number 2 to Chris Hughton. In the midfield, Alan Nielsen, Andy Sinton and David Howells, which when I read that, I've got to be honest, it was quite underwhelming, that midfield, when you think about it. Although 3 internationals, not household names, Andy Sinton and David Howells, both England internationals, but not really household, especially for that period of time. 3 forwards as well for Spurs. Well, Rule Fox, of course, former Newcastle United entertainer. Stefan Iverson, who was a well-known name of those times, and Teddy Sheringham, of course, who Mitch has already mentioned as part of the England setup, was plying his trade at Spurs at this particular time. Subs for them: Jason Dezell and Ronnie Rosenthal, who is probably best known for the miss that he had for Liverpool, where he was standing on the goal line. It was easier to score, and he blazed it over the bar. But onto this game, and the reason I picked it as Shearer, as one of Shearer's greatest games that I saw play, was it was just a goal fest. Newcastle were 2-0 up at half time. Alan Shearer had scored in the 20th minute, and 2 minutes later, his sidekick Les Ferdinand had scored as well to make it 2-0. But nobody could have, been prepared for what was to come in the second half, and it was literally was a goal fest. Alan scored another wonderful goal, which was late on in the game, where he just literally chipped it over the top of the advancing keeper to put a seal on the victory, and waved to the crowd again, as he often did with his one arm saluted, celebrating another 3 points and a fantastic win. Other goal scorers on the day, well, I've already mentioned Les Ferdinand. Rob Lee chipped in with a brace as well, and Philippe Albert didn't score many, but when he scored, they were always special and always on the big occasion. Alan Nielsen got the consolation for Tottenham, but just overall, it was a wonderful performance from Newcastle, capped by a couple of really good goals for Alan Shearer on the day, and just a memorable game. I think a lot of people would probably pick out the Manchester United game as a great game from that particular period in our history, but that Spurs one often gets forgotten, and it's up there with the 5-0 for me, up there with the 3-2 against Barcelona as well. It was a hell of an atmosphere, a hell of a day, and well worthy of a recollection on a programme like this where we're paying tribute to Alan Shearer. Just going to give a shout out to our sponsors. As always, thank you to Spider Miner, who give you worldwide coverage, and thanks to Spider VPN, who've been with us for many months now. Thanks for your support, lads. Never gets taken for granted. Thanks to skipsandbins.com, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy, contract free, and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to LNG Family Funeral Directors, 0191 389 7245, and the Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD, hemp and cannabinoid specialists, www.guhd.com. Thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and sticker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website. Thanks to CleeKai, meet the new game over screen, drop into a CleeRun device near you. Also available on Apple Store, Google Play, and CleeRun.games. Thanks to jabsignature.co.uk and to Media Arts. If you want to subscribe, hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right-hand corner, and you can subscribe for free. 7 shows a week guaranteed. Hit the thumb up to like the video, click share to share to your social media, and drop into the comments to speak to like-minded Newcastle fans. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and all podcast providers. Usually goes up 24 hours after the show. If you want to become a member, visit NUFCmatters.com or put your phone over the top of the QR code, and it takes you straight to the membership registration. You will get a cup, a pen, a membership card, and a scarf, and entry into the free draw. And if you want a car sticker, a free car sticker, then you just need to subscribe and then drop John a line at NUFCmatters.com website, and he will send you your car sticker. Don't forget, we support the food bank on here. NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk is the website. Please make a donation in the virtual bucket today. Okay, George, back to you for your favourite Shearer goal.
Well, I'm going back to where I started with the game in February, where he actually broke the record, and it's because it's the record-breaking goal that it became one of my favourites. As I kept saying, the atmosphere was full of expectation, and every time he got the ball, people were expecting him to score. The Portsmouth goalkeeper thwarted him time and time again, but midway through the second half, 64th minute, he played a 1-2 with Nzogua, and then he played a 1-2 with Shola, who did a very neat step over and a back heel right into Shearer's feet, and left Shearer with just the goalkeeper to beat. And of course, he didn't waste that opportunity, and he leathered it as he usually did at the back of the net, and then saluted the Gallagher then. It was enjoyable because it was the end of an era and the start of a new era. So, there's all the young fellas that are starting to join our club now. That's the target they've got to think of. Can they last 10 years and manage over 200 goals? It's quite a challenge to think of. Interestingly, I'm going to read this because I want to get his quote right. Shearer said, I don't care how the goal went in. If it was a free kick, a penalty, a tap in, a left foot or a right foot, at my age, you cannot be choosy. And I think that's typical Alan. You know, he's talks himself down when in fact he's created a great legend and hero worship for himself. And then Rob Lee said, Alan Shearer is the best player I have ever played with. And you can't say more than that from somebody from Rob Lee. So Portsmouth, the game against Portsmouth, that record-breaking goal, I'm going to leave as my favourite Shearer goal.
Fantastic. George, great stuff. Okay, Mitch, your favourite Shearer goal?
I think it's probably worth noting we had two different Alan Shearers at Newcastle United, really. The one that came, who was top of his game, he had one of his difference makers was his acceleration. Over 3 or 4 steps, he seemed to be quicker than so many people, so he beat him to the ball. And then other than that, he was an all-round striker. Left foot, right foot, head. You know, he had and could do it all. And then he got that horrible injury in pre-season at Everton, that fractured dislocation of his ankle. And when he come back from that, he still had pace, but he didn't seem to have that change of pace. That seemed to have gone a little bit. And unlike some players, he worked on everything else. And he became a monster at holding the ball up. I don't think I've seen anybody better than him at holding the ball up. You know, against Wolves at the weekend, everybody was screaming for ASM to run it in the corner as the time was ticking down. Shearer's eggs is eggs. If Shearer had been on the pitch, that would have been the easy ball. Stick it in the corner, and he would have kept it there for 3 minutes. And nobody would have got it off him. And I think if you want a goal that epitomises that part of his game, I think it's 2004, near the end of the season, we're playing Chelsea at home. And he's playing against Marcel Desailly. At the time, probably, okay, he was coming towards the end of his Premiership career, but he was still one of the premier centre-backs in Europe. And in this game, there's a play on the left-hand side. I think it's Robert and Bernard do a couple of 1-2s. And then Bernard plays it up with Shearer. And Shearer at this point is still about 35 yards out from goal. And if you watch what he's able to do physically, and this isn't some powder puff third division centre-back, it's the Marcel Desailly, who was a monster of a man at times. And he backs him up, then shows him one way, turns inside, and then from about 25 yards out, hits that volley, or that shot rather, into the, well, it sort of almost loops over the keeper and into almost the bottom corner rather than the top corner of the net. It's a screamer of a shot. It's a fantastic shot. It's power, it's direction, but most of all, he bullied Desailly off the ball. The strength of that man was ridiculous. And that always sticks out in my mind as one of my favourite goals of his, because of the pure physicality. That for me is football. We lose a little bit of that sometimes. And the way Shearer built that ability after he'd had that injury and came back here, it's slightly different, but no less effective striker. Fair play to him. And that was a cracking goal.
Yeah, another one that's up there. It's very, very difficult to pick out the greatest goal. There's a few. We know what Shearer's top 10 is as well. We've seen many programmes on that. Sky have run programmes. Steve Wilkinson, your choice, please.
Yeah, I was looking at that top 10, and you could pick many of them as memorable goals, and I don't think this was Shearer's choice himself, but it was up there. The game I've picked, and it was the volleyed goal against Aston Villa in 1991. It was the second goal in a 3-0 win, and the thing that's memorable for me was that the cross he received off Rob Lee was a perfect cross, but he just got so far away from the defender he was about 5 yards away from the defender. Now, who on earth is going to let Alan Shearer get that sort of say? So he's visioned to move away from the defender to the side, and he it almost went on he volleyed it. I love a volley. Any goal that I see that's volleyed in, it's why like Bruno's goal a couple of weeks ago with back heel volley is going to be a goal we'll talk about in God knows how many years' time. But any volley is a great goal. And Shearer, this was a placed volley, and whether he meant to put it exactly where it went, but it went just under the bar and inside the post and the far side. Peter Schmeichel of all people was in goal. I wish he'd let them in when we played him in the game when we beat Man United, beat us 1-0 in the year we could have won the league. That day he had a blinder, but this day he was just rooted to the spot. He just couldn't do anything about it, and it was just the fact that the volley was almost as well. It went 90 degrees. Rob Lee picked them out on the pass, and it was a side foot volley just inside the post. And unlike Shearer, he didn't actually run away with his characteristic one arm salute. He actually just stuck his two arms in the air and stood still, and then waited for people to jump on him. And I think Rob Lee was one of the first. Now I'm gonna spoil this goal, because if you were in the crowd that day, you remember how ecstatic you were about it. Now, if we'd move forward to nowadays, Steve, can you put the other picture up, please, that I sent? I decided to be a VAR official and work out whether Shearer's elbow was offside or not, because you can and it would have taken about 3 or 4 minutes for them to put the lines on. It was just when it just seemed to me when I saw this picture. You can watch the goal on YouTube, and when I looked at it, and I thought he might have been offside, but they would have spent God knows how many minutes looking at that. So that ecstasy we had celebrating that goal would have been delayed, and that's the problem with VAR. I think we don't want VAR offside decided on margins like that, where his elbow might have been offside and things. It was meant for clear and obvious. That's neither. I just thought that was a different angle to look at it and show how VAR would have, had been around them days. The feeling would have been different. As was the case with Chris Wood's goal last week, where we had to hang around and wait for God knows how long to see whether they were going to give it or not. And you just want to celebrate a goal, and unless it's absolutely certain, forget this VAR. And I'm sure Shearer was very pleased that VAR wasn't around, because some of the goals he scored were, because of his quickness and getting that extra yard all of a sudden. The sort of Mitch was talking about the speed he had, particularly at the beginning. It probably would have spent hours adjudicating, and the game wouldn't have been as enjoyable. So that was my goal, the goal against Aston Villa in 1991. We went on to win 3-0 with Craig Bellamy scoring the other 2 goals in the game.
Yeah, okay, great stuff. Alwaleed, your favourite Shearer goal?
As you said, lads, it's very hard to pick a specific goal. But for me, especially, in the league, Premier League, the teams know each other, play against each other all the time. But when it comes to Champions League, it's different. You do play at different schools, different style of play. So for me, the goal in Champions League is, it's different. And from I recall, it's like pieces in the memories. I recall the 2 games against Juventus and Inter Milan. I remember the coach of Juventus says to, I think that was admission from Trezeguet, a French player, international French player. He told me with the coach told me and I think Marcello Salas to study Alan Shearer style for play as an assignment. For the goal against Inter Milan, the San Siro, it was 2 goals in a few minutes, and they all been scored almost the same way. Alan Shearer was slide to score, and as said by Dr. Nell, he said the acceleration, and this is one of the most best feature in Alan Shearer is he's ahead of any player, and even with that he tried to slide and score the 2 goals in the same way against Inter Milan and San Siro.
Yeah, fantastic memories of that particular game, and maybe it's not from a supporting point of view with the horrendous acts that were being, and things that were being thrown at us by the Italian supporters, it has to be said. But yeah, looking forward to those kind of days returning as a Newcastle fan, certainly. Steve Hasty, then, your favourite Shearer goal, please, mate. You're on mute, so make sure you unmute yourself, mate.
Right. Well, I think what we need to explain, because I picked the corker goal, and the reason I managed to pick the corker goal is just to explain to those who are watching that when Steve asks us which game, which goal, etc., there's a mad scramble on the WhatsApp group to get in. And everybody knows in the past I've got in last, and I've had some corkers over the years. I've had some real bloomers, but I tell you what, this week, when Steve sent that message, I went, got it, get in, quick. And I picked the goal that Alan thinks is his best goal ever. And it's the most simple goal. It's a cross, a knockdown, and a volley. Dead simple, dead easy. The only difference was the cross came from Norm Robert, the knockdown came from Shola Amiobi, and Alan hit this ball probably the hardest he's ever hit it. And I think at least half the Gallagher end on that right-hand side as you're looking towards the goal was the ball gone, whoa, because they thought they were going to get absolutely smacked with it because it could have come through the net. There's no question. The power that Alan connected with that shot could have gone through the net if it wasn't for the fact that the grounds were going to put in a couple of extra pegs in the bottom of the net corner. I'm convinced of it because it was an absolute screamer. As a striker, you must love when you hit that sweet spot. And I think on that particular goal, the cross comes in, Shola knocks it down. I think what people got to understand, probably not aware, we had been pummeled in that goal, and Richard Wright in goal for Everton on that day had an absolutely storming game. He had one of those games that if it had gone another 5 minutes, because there was only 5 minutes of the game left and they were winning 1-0, if it had gone another 5 minutes, he would have walked off with the man of the match award. He would have given his team 3 points and Everton would have been absolutely ecstatic. But instead, with 5 minutes to go, the little knockdown from Shola that just cushioned the ball perfectly into Alan's path was absolutely sublime. But the reaction of Alan to hit that ball absolutely perfectly was out of this world. That brought us back with 5 minutes to go to 1-1. But in those days under Robson, it wasn't over yet. The game wasn't over. And a couple of minutes later, Craig Bellamy pops up. And we walked out of that St. James's Park on that day, the 1st of December 2002, 3 points back into the Strawberry thinking, what have we just watched? All we could talk about was a goal, but we'd salvaged 3 points at the point where we thought we were perhaps going to get one. Looked like we were going to get nothing, but we managed to walk away with the 3. But that, if you were in the ground on that day and you witnessed that, you witnessed what was Alan Shearer's best ever goal out of the 206 he scored for Newcastle, and God knows how many other goals he scored for both Southampton and Blackburn, because he scored some rakers for them as well. Let's not beat about the bush. Alan was a top-class striker no matter where he was, whether he was wearing the England shirt, Southampton shirt, or the Blackburn Rovers shirt. But in a Newcastle United jersey, in the black and white stripes, that goal will go down in history as his best ever.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I went for a slightly more obscure one, and it was a game which finished the season off in 2000, 14th of May, Newcastle United versus Arsenal. Again, another comprehensive win over a London club, which tends not to happen home or away, to be honest. Newcastle, though, running out 4-2 winners. Gary Speed got a brace in that game. Andy Griffin, who's been mentioned already tonight, got a goal as well. But Alan Shearer scored a sublime free kick in the 23rd minute at the Leazes end. And it's, I don't know why, it's just always been one of my favourite Shearer goals because of the power that he used to be able to get into free kicks. It's not an easy thing to do. Get that power from a standing free kick, and direction as well. And he managed to do it. And whereas Kieran Trippier or Ryan Taylor or Liam O'Brien, they used to have the knack of precision and curling the ball around the wall, Alan used to just go straight through it. And God help anybody getting in the way of a Shearer free kick, because if it didn't knock you out, I don't know what it would do. And Steve's just mentioned as well, just from that volley, people thought it was going to come through the net. But yeah, that's probably one of my favourites. A wonderful free kick. I know it's in Alan Shearer's top 10 as well. Having watched a few of these goals back before we did the programme today. But that is my favourite goal. It's been a pleasure, lads, sharing a little bit of time, looking back on Alan Shearer's wonderful career. Certainly somebody who we will never forget, and I think we all count ourselves very, very lucky having seen him play in a black and white shirt. But for now, George, Mitch, Steve, Alwaleed, and Steve Hasty, thanks very much for joining us. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, everyone.